Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm Nathan Aday, founder of the Mental Roots podcast. And yeah, this podcast is just a great platform for young black Brits, by young black Brits. I say young black Brits, but I'm the only young black Brit who is hosting this right now. But hopefully, God willing, that will change. I'm looking for some like-minded people to help me with this podcast. But yeah, it's just meant to be a safe space mainly for young black men, especially young black British men like me, to just talk about mental health in a very relaxed, non-fake way, just being real about our struggles, being real about the things that are, low-key kind of bothering us, or even high-key, because let's face it, as young black men, we are not always as chilled or as controlled as we would like to think we look. So yeah, man, like that's what it's about. Great conversations that I've had with many friends and experts that I know of. And in this episode, I am chatting with another kind of experienced person in terms of really doing the groundwork in raising awareness. It's not just a side hobby thing. It's his vocation. It's his speciality. And this is a guy called Idriss that I've met a few months ago, and we've been connecting through the kind of some workshop sessions with Inside Out, which is another mental health organization which you should check out. In the previous 2 episodes, I spoke to their founder Vanessa, who's a lovely person, and yeah, my chat with Idriss, which you're about to hear, this is part 1, and we just go into his kind of experience growing up in Cameroon and transitioning to the UK, and kind of the mental toll on him in terms of how he navigated masculinity as a young guy growing up in Cameroon. So I want to keep this intro really short, and we're going to get straight into it. Idriss works with an amazing organization called the Black and Minority Ethnics in Psychiatry and Psychology Network, better known as BiPP. I prefer the BiPP abbreviation. So yeah, that's the organization he works with. So you can check out the details for where they are and what they do online in the written details for this podcast episode. But yeah, let's hop into it. Part 1 with my chat with Idriss, and let go. Boom. Okay. So Idriss,
Yes.
I feel like adding the elbow at the end. I don't know if you get that a lot of the time, but it's just when I said your name just now, it was on my
Yeah.
tongue to say elbow, but
Listen, I would take that as a compliment. I would take any sort of association with him and just be like, yep, yeah, distant relative with different country, but still vibes.
yeah. Okay, cool. So Idriss, thank you for your time for the podcast. As of the time we're recording this, you haven't heard the podcast yet, which is fine because you're approaching this with a very fresh mind, which is good.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're just going to get into your life story and how mental health fits in your life story, and like what you'd
Yeah.
like to see in terms of black men, especially in the UK and in white majority countries, like what we can do to better support each other. So
Mhm.
yeah, man, like let's give some context for the listeners. So I met you through a men's focus group, which was, I think, the last one I was in, and this focus group was with the organization Inside Out. So shout out
Yes.
Inside Out, you
Shout
guys
out
are
into that for
incredible.
sure.
But yeah, I think it was in September. That was the last one
Yeah.
I was at, and yeah, just it was great to be part of that focus group for just to talk about it. It wasn't even from what I like about these focus groups with Inside Out is that it's not so much about them, it's more about
Mhm.
us. Even though we're not
Yeah.
officially part of the organization, they could have treated it like, what do you guys think we can do better to support young
Mhm.
black men? But instead, it's like they're serving us. It's almost like a counseling session, a group counseling session,
Yeah.
rather than like a research kind of project, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, just give maybe a bit of insight into how you got into the focus groups as well. And we can
Um,
revisit this later in our conversation in more detail. But yeah, just what have those kind of focus groups done for you?
I honestly can't tell you. the exact time that I recall,
Mm,
being involved with the organization. But I remember seeing a thing about a research on Black men. Either it was on Twitter or I received an email about it. But it was research on Black men's mental health, and I was like, bet that's my area of interest.
mm,
So I signed up to it. I can't remember if it was an Eventbrite or something like that, but I know I signed up to it, and yeah, on the day I I tuned in, and it was a very very rich conversation that took place there.
mm,
Loads of just eye-opening experiences from different men. Um, and yeah, again, shout out to Inside Out for facilitating that because that was really good. And
mm,
obviously, got to meet you there. That was good. So yeah,
mm. So was it your first time in September
first
attending?
time,
Okay, okay,
first time,
cool.
yes.
And since then, how many focus groups have you been part of?
I've been to two. I think the one
Mm.
between September and the most recent one, I couldn't
Okay.
attend because
Oh wow.
it clashed with something else
Mm.
that I just really couldn't not commit to. So I ended up going to that one instead. But I was like, now I have to, no, I need to go back to the focus group because,
Mm.
like I said, it was a very rich conversation, and I was looking to have these kind of conversations, especially with other Black men. So I
Mm.
was
Right.
looking forward to it again.
Okay. 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 Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, we haven't known each other that long, but I do
Hmm.
know that you are remind me the exact name of it again, because I don't want to put. It's like everyone who works in mental health, there obviously there's very many different roles. So,
Yeah.
kind of just specify what you do as well.
So at the moment, my direct work with mental health revolves around working with an organization called the Black and Minority Ethnic in Psychiatry and Psychology,
Hmm.
BiPP Network.
Okay.
So what
Ah,
I
yeah,
do,
I know about them. Yeah.
yeah, when I'm working there, I'm working as a director of events and logistics. So we
Right. Okay.
organize events regarding mental health and kind of facilitating conversations, discussions, um, panel discussions as well, to advance the interest of people of minority ethnic groups within the field of psychiatry and psychology. Um, so with them, we've done a lot of work in terms of facilitating conversations, talking about racial discrimination within academia, talking about the like racial disparity in mental health provision for Black men
Mm,
within the UK. We've also published like some threads on racial trauma. We've published blogs, and we've shared articles. We do kind of a lot of stuff. We also provide reflective spaces for doctorates, both in clinical psychology and in educational psychology. So every year we kind of open up a space where they can come in and they can reflect ahead of the interviews because it's one of the key thing, during the application process where students are graded on whether they could become a doctorate or not. And many children and many students from Black and minority ethnic groups tend to not do so well in those assessment because they are not often given the chance of having a reflective space. So by opening that space for them, it kind of gives them a chance to not rehearse but practice
mm,
how to be reflective before the interview. We've also done loads of interviews and like Q&As with doctors from different fields in psychology, allowing people who are interested in the field to have an overview or kind of like an insight before the application process begins or even during the application process.
mm,
We've done so for educational psychology, clinical, occupational, sports science, sports psychology, um, tons of other, variety with a program called New Face of Psychology. So it was a
mm,
campaign that was launched by one of my uh, colleague, Sarah.
mm,
She launched it to highlight the new generations of Black and ethnic minority clinical psychologists, not just clinical, but doctorate, who got on the program for this
okay.
year. So all of our interviewees are first year trainees who have got onto the program and they're going to become doctors, in 3 or 4 years' time. and it was almost a year-long campaign, rolling out both um, kind of a all about me type of post online. So giving them their names, the university they went to, the sort of job experience they had, any sort of tips that they can share with the public or
Mm,
our audience. And then every Wednesday we will have a Q&A on Twitter that people can tune in, and the doctorate candidate or the doctorate trainee will just come in, and people are able to ask them any questions and they will answer it on a Twitter thread.
mm,
And then that get turned into a blog that we share on our website. And then every Sunday evening, 6 p.m., we will have a live, an Insta live with one of the other training. We've had a lot of people on the campaign, so it does rotate. So people get a chance to see different expressions of psychology, basically.
mm,
So that's the BIPP in a sense. We have a lot more that you can find on our website,
mm,
but that's what I do when it comes to mental health.
mm,
Um, yeah,
mm. Okay, so it's, I guess, less on the, you work less on the kind of counseling side, but more in the kind of general raising awareness.
I do more on the general raising awareness. I do have experience in the past working as more of like a in close proximity with mental health patient. I worked in a priory hospital in Bristol, which is where my parents live,
Okay.
uh, and there I was a mental health care assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes advocate as well, informally, but that was my experience as a mental health care, I guess, practitioner. But I really wouldn't call myself that because there is a proper job title called mental health
Mm,
practitioner.
mm,
And then having moved out of Bristol,
mm-hmm.
with a stop in North Wales for university, and then now in London.
Okay.
My involvement with mental health has gotten more and more pronounced as I realized the demand for proper
Mm,
mental health provision,
right.
for Black people in
Yeah.
general, but Black men in particular. So when I was at university, I did raise awareness about encouraging more reflections within my group of students. Um, I was the president of the African and Caribbean Society at university.
Which
So
uni
I
did you
did
go to?
Bangor University,
Okay.
Bangor
Whereabouts is that?
University, North Wales, literally
Oh,
like
okay.
right next to Ireland. Like you get off there,
Wow.
get on the boat, boom, you're in Ireland.
Interesting.
So all my Irish folks will know what I'm talking about. Because when you need to go to Ireland, if you're not going by plane, then you need to go by there. You need to go through Bangor for sure.
Right.
You can't
Okay.
miss it.
Interesting.
um, so yeah, I was a president for 2 years there, and while I was president, I did try to get more and more conversation going to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that we address our mental health, because a lot of the students there were dealing with a lot of isolation
Mm,
due to the fact that it's quite a remote town, um, you know, away from everything else, really and truly. So if you're a Black person and you don't really have that sort of family dynamic around you or any sort of community dynamic around you, it can
mm,
become quite isolating.
yeah.
And during my one-to-one conversation with my peers, it was very apparent that they needed a little community around them. So I tried to get us together without necessarily too much of the flashy stuff that happens elsewhere in ACSs, just sitting around the table or having food and just talking. So yeah, that was my I guess my entry into mental health advocacy
Mm,
from the non-professional side of it, because I wanted to just get people more aware about their mental health and taking care of themselves, of their general well-being as well.
mm,
So yeah, coming to London, I just pursued that a bit more by joining Work Weekly, which is another organization I'm involved with,
mm.
and they are more, expert in facilitating conversations around topics that pertain to the Black community,
Okay.
from anything, from education to religion to politics to social interactions. It's a lot of serious and sometimes obviously fun conversation, but like they try to get people talking and express themselves on a range of topics. Fantastic job that they do. So yeah, work quickly. Sign up as well to work with the BiPP as well, and I've
Mm.
been doing these two on a voluntary basis since 2019.
Okay. Mm. Interesting. And were you an international student in your uni?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Although, um,
'Cause I guess the main
although
reason
it
I'm
felt
asking is
like,
because I can hear an
I mean,
accent.
I wouldn't
So,
say it felt like I was an international student
mm.
because I'm from Cameroon.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm from Cameroon, and I came to the UK 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I was only in the country for 3 years before I went to university. So although I wasn't
Mm.
an international student, I was very new to the UK,
Mm.
and I had a lot of overlap with the experience of people who are internationals,
Mm.
but still was classified as a home student because I had been in the UK for 3 years and
Yeah.
I was now entitled to student finance. So it was an interesting kind of a bridge between the two perspective that I had.
Mm. Okay, cool. So let's rewind then back to your early days. So you lived in Cameroon all your life until 7 years
Until I
ago.
came to
Okay.
the UK. Yeah.
So let's delve into your roots then. Let's talk about what um life was like growing up in Cameroon, the
Yeah.
culture there, and this will be interesting because what I've noticed with a lot of the guests that I've had on this podcast is obviously a lot of them are Black British, right? And so
Mhm.
a lot of us growing up, we've always felt this sense of othering right from the
Mhm.
get go because we've always seen that
Mhm.
whiteness is the normality, right?
Yeah.
But I guess um, what was different for you? Was it
Mhm.
different in any way? Is this a conversation you've had with other Black British friends in terms of what it was like for them growing up in England and what it was
Yeah.
like for you? Like, let's kind of.
It was different for sure.
Mm,
Being the majority in the
mm,
country, you do walk around differently.
mm,
We didn't really have a notion of race per se. We knew that
yeah,
there were other races that existed,
yeah,
but without close proximity and without active interaction on a daily basis, it was a concept that was yet it was too blurry for us to really get our head around it.
mm,
Now, what did make us very aware of our difference from the rest of the or our not our difference, but we were aware of a thing called whiteness was due to TV. So
mm,
using, because of television, and Cameroon is a bilingual country, so we do speak French and English in Cameroon.
yeah,
Nevertheless, Cameroon is pretty much split between the French speaking part and the English speaking part.
right.
And because of it, our experiences on these two sides of Cameroons are quite different.
Mm. Are there any
So
original languages in Cameroon as well?
we have around 292 languages, in
Mm,
Cameroon that unfortunately are not all taught in schools. But
mm,
there's been pushes in recent years to nationalize three of them.
okay.
And I'm, praying that, they do get that on the curriculum because
Mm,
I know that at university level, you can study some languages that
mm,
are original from Cameroon, but in terms of primary, secondary, and high school,
mm-hmm.
there isn't any effort in teaching those languages in
Okay.
school. But that's something that I'm definitely supporting because it will be important for these kids to have the languages of their own spoken on the national level. But
Mm,
what also tends to happen is if there's 292 languages, which one do you get to pick? You know,
mm,
some people are going to put the rugs on their side, and it needs to be my language that's spoken nationally. So that's another issue that we can elaborate on a different day.
yeah.
But so French speaking side of Cameroon, we used to watch a lot of TV programs that were directly from France.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
although we do have national TV and national programs that reflected people of our experiences. We also got I guess, a glimpse of what French people were watching on TV. So it was a weird, it was a weird experience because you subconsciously idolize what that experience is like, and you'll have a level of awareness of what life on the other side of the world looks like.
Mm.
And Cameroon was quite open to the world in the sense that we also had telenova. I don't know if you've heard of that, telenovas, which were soap operas from the Latin America TV programs. So they were all in Spanish, but they were
Oh,
translated in French by
oh, right,
France.
okay.
So that was an exposure to a different kind of culture as well.
Mm.
It was French to our ears, but we could tell that it was either
It was dubbed,
Brazilian
yeah.
or Colombian or Argentinian,
Mm.
culture that was exposed to us. And we also had, other awareness about the rest of the continent. I was very fortunate, to be honest. My history and geography teachers
Mm.
were definitely on job in making us aware of our global, image. So
Mm.
we had a good round history of Africa. So
Good.
we understood Africa from the prehistoric days, and then Africa
Mm.
from the ancient civilizations, the ones in Egypt, in Sudan, in Kush, all the way down to the ones in Zimbabwe, and then the more recent empires in Mali, Ghana, Togo, Gao, Songhai, Zulu,
Wow.
the ones in Ethiopia, obviously, Ethiopian Empire. So having that awareness of blackness outside of the Eurocentric slaves
Slavery,
or
yeah.
civil right narrative
Mm.
was definitely impactful in my understanding of myself.
Wow.
And then again in geography, we was again very fortunate because you only realize this until when you get to see what others don't have. But when we were growing up, we had geography lessons,
Mm.
and on top of us not just knowing about the different general geography, like, oh, what is a plain, a forest, a valley, a mountain, all of that. We also studied geopolitics, in
Mm.
terms of trades and how that trade is like a neo-colonialistic means for European and American powers to maintain social order in a global scale, and
Mm.
how they use, trades and blockades to force the hands of developing countries into deals that are not beneficial for them. So yeah, understanding trade, understanding aids, understanding north-south dynamics and south-south dynamics, all of those things were very instrumental in informing who I am as a person.
So let's delve a bit deeper into that in terms of how it informed you, because we all hear the phrase education is power, right? So yeah, let's delve a bit more into what that meant to you growing up as a boy in Cameroon. What did that
Mhm.
education do for you, like on a practical level that maybe at the time you took for granted, but now you've got a more sound awareness of various experiences of black people in different settings? Like, how would
Yeah.
you define how that education impacted you or helped you practically?
Um, I think it did help me in having high aspiration for myself.
Mm,
Um, because, like I said, we did learn about history and we learn about
mm,
the greats
mm. Did you
globally, but also
learn?
the greats.
I'm curious to, because clearly there's a lot of education that a lot of black Brits like me are missing in terms of
Hmm.
that knowledge of African empires and civilizations
Hmm.
outside of and prior to slavery.
Hmm.
So, like, was a lot of that history about, I guess, just within Africa, or also the contributions of influential Africans to outside Africa as well?
Yeah, so we did touch on that part as well later in my curriculum, like end of year, end of high school. But
Mm,
early history, yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, the way it was going was from year seven
hmm
or what you guys call year 7 here
Hmm.
onwards, you kind of doing history on a chronological scale. So by year 9, you're doing like World War histories, World Wars.
Okay.
But after you do like global history, for example, and then year 10, 11, and 12, and 13, you then do like African history in a sense.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we learn about, like I said, the ancient kingdoms and everything like that, but we also learn about the Moors and we also learn about Haiti and like Haitian Revolution. And then we did like
Okay.
political movements in America. We learn about the Black Panther, we learn about
Okay.
the UNIA, we learned about um, the movements of liberations within African countries, during
Mm,
the post-colonial era. So, like the struggle for independence of many African countries, that was a history that was not hidden at all.
mm,
We explored national heroes who fought against, imperialism. We also explored African heroes who fought against imperialism, and it was a clear, whether it was intentional or not, but it was a clear visualizations of the fact that where we are right now, there is a cause to it. It didn't just happen.
mm.
Things didn't just things were not like this all the time.
Right.
And there's a beginning and there's meant to be an end to it. So I think that was what it kind of did for me,
Right.
going to school and understanding that there are reasons for certain things and there are causes to everything.
Mm.
And there's a beginning to stuff as well.
Mm. So you said, okay, that education gave you a sense of something to aspire to and now I understand why, because not only did you
Mm,
learn about, influential rulers in Africa, but also what people of African descent contributed to the Western world in terms of the
mhm.
civil rights movements and things like that. So I understand that now. And um, I guess, like what was your so you have the education side, which is great. In terms of
Mhm.
your family and your relationships, you know, what, like, did you also feel support from that as well on a community level? And also,
Yes.
yeah, and kind of looking back, were there any factors of your childhood or growing up that you can see were big impacts on your mental health, or yeah, like, just take us through that mental health
Mm.
aspect as well.
So growing up, my parents, both mom and dad, they left quite when I was quite young. So
Okay.
5 years old for dad and around 7 years old for mom. They came to Europe as asylum seekers
Okay.
um, due to political uneasiness. And so I actually grew up with my uncles and aunties.
Oh, okay.
And so it was an interesting time because I would live with one uncle and auntie until I would basically bankrupt them, then be moved to another uncle and auntie, then
Mm.
kind of rot
And
me
these
and
aren't,
my siblings
like,
would be
they're not
rotated around.
related uncles and aunties. They're just,
No, these were
oh,
siblings
they're
of my mom.
related. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, siblings of my mom's, who we were kind of like in a rotation with all of them,
Right. Okay.
as they were helping my parents raise us in a sense, given that my parents were not there to do so. So
Mm.
it was an interesting time because there wasn't any sense of continuity.
Mm. Well, that is it. That is the end of part one of my chat with Idriss. Really good stuff, and obviously we just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of, his growing up in Cameroon and the people he had around him to raise him and to be positive role models for him. So we just about started touching on that, as you just heard, and we go into a lot more detail in part two that comes out next Tuesday. So make sure you don't miss that. And to make sure you don't miss it, please, 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 on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube right now, like every other YouTuber says, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends and family, or anyone else. that you know will really benefit from this kind of content. And obviously, you know, when you hit that bell to subscribe and turn on your notifications, then you can be notified as soon as the episode is out. Also, obviously, do the same thing with any podcast platform that you're listening on. So whether it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform, you can also subscribe there. And if you've got the app or anything and there's the ability to turn on notifications, please do that as well for those platforms. And of course, the social media details are on display. So please follow the podcast, Mental Roots Podcast _ on Instagram, and Mental Roots Pod 1, I think it is, on Twitter. I'll put the tag on the screen as well. And yeah, it's going to be great for you guys to just catch up and also feedback with me on the episodes. How are they helping you? Any content that you feel I could have done better with in terms of any information that was not very accurate or anything like that. If you do have any expertise on mental health or any knowledge or awareness that you want to bring to my attention in regards to any of the topics we've discussed, then let me know by going on the Instagram page. I am mainly on Instagram, so that's the best way to contact me for anything regarding the podcast. But as I said, part 2 next week. We're going straight into the exciting bit of my chat with Idriss in terms of his upbringing and what this reveals about black male role models especially in Africa, in African countries. So that would be an interesting perspective. But anyway, until the next episode comes out, have a great next week. Stay safe, take care of your mental health, and keep smiling, keep thriving. This phone camera keeps going dark. I don't know why. Speaking of cameras and gear, obviously it would be great if I could upgrade my gear so that my camera wouldn't be doing this lighting stuff that it's doing right now. And one way you can support financially for this podcast is through checking out the affiliate links, the Amazon affiliate links in the written description for this episode, on whatever platform you're listening to. And that's the equipment that I'm using right now, the sound recording equipment. So you can order those, and a small percentage of every order will be a commission that I earn. And another way that you can help me financially is through a fund me link. I've got a PayPal fund me link that you can use to financially support, so I can upgrade my gear and, you know, hopefully pay other people to do other jobs for the podcast as well, so that we can make this thing bigger. And it's bigger than myself. It's a community thing. And yeah, just like any good movement in society, it does require money. So let me know if you want to support financially. God bless, guys, and have a great week. Stay safe. Peace.